So, welcome to Take the Lead, the podcast with your host, Tasman J. I am elated for today's conversation and today's guest who is joining us. We are talking all things entrepreneurship, and the theme is Take the Plunge. But before we jump into the conversation, I want to invite you. You perhaps may be a stay at home mom, an entrepreneur, a father, CEO, or a college student, wherever you are and however you lead within your environment. I want to invite you to do one thing, and that is simply share this episode where on whichever platform you're joining us. I want to invite you to go ahead so that those that are connected to you, those that may see this on your timeline, would be inspired, catapulted, provoked, challenged, educated by the conversation today. So go ahead, hit that share button, and we will be right back. So one more time, welcome to Take the Lead, the podcast with your host Tasman J. I am extremely excited because joining us on this episode is a childhood friend of mine, and she is budding or blooming. I would even say she is soaring in her own right as an entrepreneur, a fastly growing uh, brand, and she's also an influence in her own right, as well as a young mother and wife. And so she has quite a bit of wealth of information to share with regard to leading in different veins. Lachelle, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm extremely excited that you decided to join the podcast. And we were conversing a few days ago, and I was sharing, I was completely jealous that you had an opportunity to go and visit the Bahamas. And I am still in the beautiful land of Canada, but haven't had an opportunity to go home since the beginning of the pandemic.
I trust
So
me, I feel you. I feel you. That was my first time since the pandemic too, so it was much needed. I didn't go home. I didn't go to Freeport, but Exuma was beautiful. It was beautiful. So you're gonna get there. I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
rooting for you.
So, one of the things that I want to ask, and this is one of the questions that we normally kick off our podcast with, and that is, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you found to be common amongst the leadership journey or within your leadership journey?
I would definitely say so when I was in corporate America, I did a leadership course. And I thank God for that course. I didn't compare, well, the list that they had sent, I didn't qualify. However, God saw fit to get me accepted into that program. And this was back in 2012, so 10 years ago. And everything I've learned in that program, I am actively using today in my business. So, some things I would definitely say that are like important, like any leader would say that they use those elements. First things first, I would definitely say integrity. Like having integrity is a huge part of establishing yourself as a leader within your own right, within your home, being true to yourself, having integrity in your community, having integrity for the people that you lead because you're leading by example. Another thing is patience. Whew, as a dad, as a leader in your own right, leading God's people, you know, patience is a virtue. You can't do anything. Don't even put the title. Don't even put on the title if you don't have patience. Go sit down, go get processed with some patience first, and then pick it up because you're not going to last. Either you're going to drive everybody away, from your impatience, or everything is going to crumble. So patience is definitely one. I've also learned that remaining teachable is extremely important as a leader, because just because we're in the forefront doesn't mean that we know everything. So you hire people on your team that are experts in the field that you need them to cover, and they may bring some things to the table that can teach you something. So definitely remaining teachable. Like, you should never want to always be the smartest person in the room, because you cap yourself at growing. Like, you don't grow if you're the smartest person in the room, you're the richest person in the room. You always have to remain teachable, and humility, of course. Because sometimes, guess what? You're going to be wrong, and you're going to have to admit that you're wrong. So, humility goes a long way. So, those are some of the most invaluable tools and parts of my journey that I would definitely say that I hold tight to, hold near and dear to my heart, and keep that at the forefront of my personal journey and my journey in this business, and even in any industry, in any capacity of leadership. Those are some of the key elements that you're going to need to have.
That's amazing. And um, one of the things specifically that you shared on that I think is so significant is the first one, which is integrity, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I shared with someone on an episode, several episodes back, is integrity is almost like when you go to the gym. A lot of people are focusing on the biceps, triceps, chest workout, and those are things like talent and competencies. Um, but integrity is leg day,
Mm,
and it gives your leadership something strong to stand on,
you better come
right?
on.
and and when you think of it, like, we've seen within the past several decades, presidents, CEOs, athletes who were very skilled, who were very competent, talented, and influential. But the lack of integrity or the misstep morally cause the entire opportunity of their leading and influence others to crumble, right? And I think that's so powerful. And even as a in every area, as a spouse, as a husband or wife, attempting to lead without integrity is going to be very difficult. As
And
a
detrimental.
manager, as a manager, CEO, entrepreneur, attempting to lead staff or clients is going to be impossible if they don't trust you. And so I think that's very uh, um, important, significant. And of course, patience is one of those things where, back in the Bahamas, they say it definitely is a virtue. And a lot of times that is built by being pressure tested, your leadership being pressure tested, right? So, share with us, because we're talking about uh, the journey of entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I found within the last several years is it's become a buzzword: entrepreneurship,
Yes, 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 yes,
marketplace.
yes.
And I think a lot of people are infatuated
Mm-hmm.
with the idea of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you take the plunge, you realize there's a reality hit that hits you. Uh,
Go ahead.
and a good example is when I started my marketing company. Prior to, I was full time at working in church, and we were working like 40 hours consistently. As an entrepreneur, I was working 40 hours a day. And so, share with us And we're going to take this into segments. um, Before you take the plunge, what are some of the things that persons should be mindful of um, diving into entrepreneurship?
Okay. So I like how you said, you work 40 hours a week when it was full time. But now that you're an entrepreneur, you work 40 hours a day. And it reminds me of that meme that said, I left my job because I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. Now I work 24/7. Because literally, entrepreneurship, I think, especially with social media and where things are, like you said, people have become infatuated because it's been glamorized, right? People glamorize it. They make it seem like, like all you have to do is 1, 2, 3, and you get 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Not even 4, 5, 6. You get 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And it may be that easy for a select few who have just the odds were in their favor, but that's not the norm. They're the exception. And so for entrepreneurship, the first thing I would say is you better know that you are called to this thing because you are going to be tested, you're going to be tried, and there are going to be many opportunities that are going to pressure you to give up. So you better know that you're called to it. Another thing is too, before you want decide to get into entrepreneurship, you have to know that you have stamina. And if you know you're a person that quits the minute things go wrong, sit down somewhere and sit on them people job until you are fully processed, because you have to have stamina. You have to have longevity. You have to be in it for the long haul, because there are going to be some good days and there are going to be some bad days. But can you weather that storm? Do you have the stamina? Do you have what it takes to be able to stand firm and keep the goal in mind? What's your end goal? So if you have that stamina, if you have the longevity, if you have what it takes, that patience, again, that's where patience comes in again. If you have what it takes, then entrepreneurship may be for you. Another thing you need to do is know the industry that you're in or that you want to get into, and find some ways that can make you valuable to that industry. A lot of times, another word in the leadership community, they talk about being a thought leader. So what makes you an expert? What do you bring to the industry that nobody else is bringing? Because for me personally, especially being in the social media world, I don't have time to be copycats, to go after copycats, to follow copycats. And I always encourage people, I always say this. I was like, look, I am not following you, or I don't want to learn from you, or I don't want to listen to a replica of your coach. Because everybody has a coach. Everybody has a coach, everybody has a mentor. I'm not trying to see a mini version of them.
Right.
Who are you and what makes you different? I'm following you because I want to see you. I want to be introduced to the real you. Will the real you please stand up? And so a lot of times people get caught in this imitation syndrome, this copycat, where they're, you sound like the person, you're dressing like the person, like you're doing everything like them. But guess what? This thing can make or break you. If you don't have stamina, if you're not authentic, okay, true to yourself, if you do not know who you are, so that comes with a pure sense of identity. I always tell people, before you step into any arena, talking about you want to pursue your dreams, talking about you want to go start a business, look, you better know who you are. And especially, you better know who you are, who God called you to be. Because a lot of us not everybody comes from a strong foundation and a solid past, a solid childhood. So taking time out to find your identity, and especially find your identity in Christ, knowing who God has called you to be and who He's purposed and fashioned you to be in the earth, that is I would say that is the number one point. I just said that. I was just speaking to another friend of mine over the weekend too. We were talking about just stepping out and why it's so difficult. And when you try to, get into something like your business and you don't last. And we were talking about it, and I say a lot of times people don't last because they don't know who they are. And so that imitation can only take you so far. And when that gets tired and people get bored of you, what do you have left? When
Right.
that cookie crumbles, what do you have left? So that's why when you know who you are, people unfollowing you ain't gonna matter because my goodness, let me tell you about so many young women. And even that's why Instagram and social media, TikTok and all these things, they're making so many changes because I never understood how social media had the power to, I mean, break people's mindset in terms
Right.
of like they removed like the follower count and stuff because people will literally go into depression because they're not getting a certain amount of likes.
Right. Right.
And so
You know,
identity is so important.
I'm going to tell you one of the things that I think of as I listen to you talk. There's a passage of scripture that has grounded me, especially in the early days of my pioneering into self employment, discovering what the whole journey of entrepreneurship is like and what's not. And even before I took the plunge. And Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 11, verse 6, he says, listen, sow your seed in the morning. He says, and at evening, let not your hands be idle, because you know not which one will cause you to prosper, whether this one, that one, or both,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think as an entrepreneur, we have a word we use called hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And it has many definitions. One of the definitions, if you're employed but you have a side hustle,
Hustle, right,
means that you're attempting to
right,
earn some extra.
right.
And I think um, sometimes people either skip steps or they dive in
Mm-hmm.
unprepared, right? And you and I, we would know about jumping in the canal or the blue hole,
Right.
especially as teenagers. Sometimes I witness friends run and dive out of excitement
Mm-hmm.
and not look to consider, okay, how much thrust do I need
Mm-hmm.
to make it at a certain part in that canal
Right,
that's deep,
right.
right? And it's significant. I had an economic lecturer in university share. He said there are three type of businesses that work: those that are first,
Mm-hmm.
those that are different, those that are better, those that are different. And so often you have persons that want to open up a boutique or they want to do something, but like you said, what differentiates you between your boutique and that person's boutique is the authenticity of
Yes.
who you are,
Right.
right? Um, if not, you'll have 20 boutiques in the same location and all are mimicking one another.
Right.
And that is so important. Uh, How did you? Because I know I've read your the journey of becoming an entrepreneur and you're leaving corporate America. Share with us how did you get here to finding the company and now soaring as an entrepreneur.
So I s- I tapped into entrepreneurship. I think this was back in 2009, 2010. So that first started out with me actually doing makeup. So I always had a love for makeup. I always used to have my little makeup on. I don't know if you remember from we was teenagers. I always used to like to fix up, like we like to say. And I got that from my mom and my grandmother. My mom was always like, we would be late for church, late for work, late for school, because she gonna spend that time in the mirror. doing her hair and her makeup, okay? And Bahamian women in general, we just love to be immaculately put together when we step out of the house to go
And
somewhere.
your mommy was always one who dressed to impress.
Always. My grandmother is that way. So I couldn't escape that. And so I started, I stepped into entrepreneurship doing makeup artistry. And from there, that's when I really got serious with my walk with Christ. And people would always say, "Oh, Lashelle, you should start a cosmetic line. You should start a cosmetic line." And man, I started a cosmetic line. That was my first like actual business that was registered with the state, had my website, all of this stuff. And so I had that for about that started in 2012 up until about 2014. It didn't last long. It was just so hard to get it off the ground. And this was before, this was during that time when not every influencer was trying to start a makeup line. And so I just had so much, I did my best, but it didn't work. So that was my first failed attempt. And this time with the hair care line, so natural hair is the thing right now for Black women. And in 2013, I went natural. 2014, my grandmother died. So her name was Joyce Antoinette Farrington. The company is named after her. So when my grandmother passed in March of 2014, I lived with her the whole time I was here in Florida. So up until the point where she died. And I remember praying one day and I asked the Lord, I was like, Lord, I need you to give me a witty idea that's going to change my finances for the better. I had a really good job at the time, but, I had student loans to pay. And, I just really wanted to succeed, like working for myself. I didn't want to be in corporate America for the rest of my life. And that day I heard the Holy Spirit clear as day when I said that prayer. Make body butters, lip gloss, and nail polish. That's what I heard. So I started with the body butters and lotions. Like I did the research because I don't know if you've ever had this experience. Many of us do. I don't know about you, where the Lord gives you a vision of what He's calling you to do, or gives you an assignment, and you take that thing and run with it and forget about God. He's like, okay, God, I got it from here, and you just take off. Okay, that was me with my other stuff. So I said, this time, God, you know what? Holy Spirit, I'm going to allow you to lead me all the way through. Not going to make any decisions without you. And so I took my time. Now, I got this word in June. I didn't launch until, I think, October or November. I took the time to properly study, make sure I learned about the process because this was something that I was going to be hand making. And I took that time to really put in the work and study and prepare myself to launch. And let me tell you, like I said, it was a lot. There was some good days, but it was plenty bad days. It was a lot. I put in a lot of work. But at the time, like I said, I knew that I heard God's voice when I prayed that prayer. And at one point, I almost gave up. There have been 4 years. I think this was 2018. And I was like, Lord, this business ain't taking off. So I started with the body butters. The following year, because I was natural, I started making hair care products. I started making a hair cream because I was like, man, I tired of going to the store and these products ain't working for my hair. Like my hair dry the next day. So I was like, let me see if I could do something because people love the body butters. So I was like, let me see if I could do something that's going to hold moisture for their hair. That was a wrap. That was a wrap.
Now, I have to ask because uh, we spoke about before you take the plunge, some of the things that a budding entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur would need to be mindful of. But now, and for those of you that are just joining the podcast, we have Lashelle, who is the founder and CEO of J. Antoinette 1927 hairline products. And we're talking about taking the plunge, uh, guides to entrepreneurship. And so you've taken the plunge. But something that you said that I don't want to run past fast, and that is several steps that resulted in some failures. You started the first company with your makeup and what's not, and that didn't pan out the way that you wanted it to. And even before you struck gold with the hair products, you're doing the body butter and nail polish and lip balm or lip gloss. And that did not soar as grand as your hair product. What are some of the, I guess, greatest lessons that you've learned from what you would define as some of your failures?
Man, one of the greatest lessons I've learned is, first of all, failure makes you valuable. Don't be afraid to fail. Because honestly, who wants to watch a perfect story? A movie, let's talk about a movie and the plot. The movie is always great when the person fails and overcomes, whether they overcome complete failure, whether they overcome whatever challenge.
Can you see my goosebumps?
Failure makes you valuable because guess what? You're not the first and you're not the last that's going to fail. And so the things that you learn from failure makes you valuable and it actually makes you an expert to teach somebody else.
Right.
So it makes you valuable. Another one of the things that I learned was look, if it don't work one way, be open to trying another way. I had never, let me tell you this, never thought of making hair products. God told me body butters, lip gloss, and nail polish. Now I didn't get to even try the nail polish yet. I started the lip gloss, that was too hard. And the body butters and the lotions at that time just wasn't taking off. People loved it, but not enough people was buying it. And so God just used that as an avenue. Now, do I feel like I'm still going to have those part of? Yes, because I think I am believing God to have a full beauty line, which includes all of those things. But He used body butters and me learning how to make the body butters. That structure and that foundation allowed me to successfully pivot into hair care. So, failure, don't be afraid to fail. Just pivot. Sometimes you may have done it this way and it was a complete failure, like me. My body butter just wasn't taking off. Now, you see everybody with a body butter line. I was like, well, geez, where y'all was when I was making body butters. But don't be afraid to pivot. So you have one process and you see that thing didn't take off. Okay, how can you pivot? How can you change direction slightly that would lead you to success? So always be open to pivoting. Always. And we even saw that in the pandemic. So many companies pivoted and they blew up in the middle of a pandemic. Even for me, when we were doing our hair care products and everybody was home, people lost their jobs. Guess what? I was like, okay, I already have access to manufacturers. So if sales was going down in the hair care part of everything, I had access to buy hand sanitizer wholesale, masks wholesale. So what did I do? Add an extra section onto my website, and we were selling masks and hand sanitizers, and we made money because nobody had access to them. And
Right.
so pivot. I was able to pivot. Always be open to pivoting. Always be open to different avenues that you can take because it may not be one path, but like you said in that scripture, so you'll see it in the morning. In the evening time, don't let your hands be busy because you don't know which one, this one or the next, or both, gonna lead to that success.
Yes. You know, um, so often, and the word pivot that you use, I think, is so significant. So often we get tied to what works, right? And one of the things that I love that I'm seeing is in our parents' generation, many of them started their career and they retired 30 years into uh, a business or a field or an organization, 45 years into that. Um, but now with this generation, many are pivoting, and they're doing it for numerous reasons, right? But they're finding both satisfaction and success. Um, and I think that's important because you find that that's not only relevant um, with regard to say a career choice or was not, but in leadership, um, it is as well. One of the things I think of is as a young pastor, and for us, when me and my wife relocated to Canada, we were only pastoring for about 2 months before the pandemic hit, and so and so our pivot was mental because we came with expectations with regard to how we would serve. And um, when the pandemic came, we had to shift how we going to care for the people, how we going to reach and minister to them, how are we going to be consistent, because when provincial guidelines suggest that everyone had to be isolated and there was no connecting, conversing, you had persons who were in homes by themselves that became lonely because they couldn't visit children. It was, and so pivoting had to become uh, most significant. And many of the organizations, many of the leaders, we find um, that they become irrelevant because their inability to pivot.
That's you hear that word you use? Now let me, can you see my goosebumps? That's so key. Did you hear that? Many people become irrelevant because they refuse to pivot. My goodness.
That's it. That's it. I was reading um, just this week past, and as a matter of fact, there were three stories. Two organizations that are huge organization. One particular one that caught my attention is a CEO suggesting that it's beyond time for people to return back to office, because that's what made organizations work. And I think of within the pandemic, we've seen that organizations and staff were able to thrive in a new environment, even though the pandemic demanded the pivot.
Right.
Many organizations were able to soar and get work done with their employees at home,
Yes. And save
right?
money. Plenty money.
And save money. But what it also suggested, and one of the things that I'm very analytic with this type of things, is what perhaps required 40 hours a week was now being done in 18, right? And because of that, organizations, some organizations have seen a growth in their profit margin
Yeah.
during this pandemic.
Yeah.
But now you have leaders and CEOs that are suggesting we have to go back.
Mhm.
And the question, is why, right? One of the things that I want to ask you is, because in addition to your talking about your when you took the plunge and you're now engaging in entrepreneurship and what's not, and it was the impact of social media. One of the things I often tell people is don't get scammed by likes, because likes, unless it's converted into sales, likes are nothing but window shoppers.
That's it.
And I remember when I was doing my wedding films and advertising, I would have people that would love my content. Sometimes 250,000 likes, 1 million views,
Wow.
and you know, well, at one point I grew where my capacity to grow had diminished, right? But that was after the momentum had started. But at the beginning, I was seeing likes and was not converting into dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the impact of social media with regard to entrepreneurship, and then how do we use it so that it's converted into sales and profit.
I love that you asked that question. And I love that you said what you said because that's what I'm saying. Social media will have people fooled. I don't know if you remember or if you heard of this story a couple of years ago. It might have been during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. There was a girl on social media who had like 1 million followers, but she couldn't even sell 20 t shirts.
Wow.
And I've seen where um, I follow different influencers, especially in the makeup industry, and they have really engaging content. I'm sure their engagement numbers are through the roof. Great content, great engagement, but you don't see much movement of their products. Social media, especially for me personally, I can speak personally. Social media is like my number one source, right, for customers. But it's so important to learn how to use social media effectively. It's not about just posting content out there to get likes and comments because
Right.
it don't convert unless you on YouTube where you get paid. That CPM is making you some good money, and now Instagram as well. They're paying based on that. But that's still that if you ain't up there, that's peanuts. Okay, you can't live off of that. Now, when it comes to social media, it comes back to what I said. How do you make yourself valuable? And how do you offer value in terms of what you're selling? And what I've learned when taking like marketing courses and stuff like that, you always need to show people or give people a reason or the benefits that they will have from what you're offering. That's what people care about. How is this what you selling gonna make my life better, gonna make my life easier, and that's gonna solve my problem? Because as business owners, as entrepreneurs, you should always be solution minded.
Yes.
And if you cannot properly convey, clearly and properly convey how your product, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, adds value to someone else's life, either makes it easier, makes it better, or solves their problem, you're you're only gonna have likes and comments. That's it. It's not gonna
Yes.
convert to sales. So what I have seen, and let me tell you, I can speak from experience. Um, what I did with social media, and see, and this is why I love the Holy Spirit. This is why relationship with Holy Spirit will always, like, He leads and guides you in all truth. God always has a plan of success for us. Back in the day, but see, sometimes we slow. Me, God always have to work me like, Lashelle, you taking too long. How long? I tell you this from 5 months ago. You want to do the first step? Yeah. Year back in 20, I think 16, God gave me an idea. Because at the time in the natural hair space, like they would always post a certain type of hair all the time. All the girls with the pretty curls, the type 3. But I didn't see no representation of my type of hair. So I started a page called Type 4 Hair. And this was specifically to represent the girls whose hair looked like mine. And I sat on that page, Tasman, I sat on that page for must be about almost 3 years. At the end of 2018 was when I really decided to start doing stuff with it. 2019 came in. I think I came at the end of 2018, things started to move. And I think I had about 700 followers. 2019 came in. I think I moved up to 1100. Tasman, by the end of 2019, because I worked that thing, because I was unemployed now. My job had closed. So I only had my business. I said, you know what? I'm going to work this page because I am celebrating type 4 hair. I'm going to use this avenue to introduce people to Jay Antoinette. Mm-hmm. So I would celebrate, and then I would feed my personal content into it. You know, me doing my hair, me showing off my products, and then celebrate. So just like Gary Vee said, jab, 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 punch. And so when I did that, I was consistent. Consistency is key in anything. I was consistent day in, day out. I was posting content, you know, just celebrating women, reposting, because it was just like a repost of different types of hair like ours. Tasman, by the end of 2019, I think I had 60-something thousand followers.
Wow.
I came in 2019 with like 1100 or not even 1100. By the end of 2019 or early part of 2020, I had 60-something thousand followers. But I, for sure, at by the end of 2020, we had well over, 2019, we had well over 50,000. And so it was 60,000 followers. I think we got close to 65 before I changed the name. And that was my way of introducing people to my hair care line. And that's how my hair care line now started to move. Because now I'm teaching, because on that page, I would talk about, you know, different things that mattered in the community, how to solve problems, how to deal with dryness, how to deal with shrinkage, how to deal with split ends. Like it was education and fun. And then I would tell them to follow my hair care line. And that's how I got into it. And then now what I'm seeing now, my hair care line is doing really well on Instagram. What I know from my business, how I provide value, before and afters are key for my industry. Right. So when I went through postpartum shedding, and Lord told me to take pictures, when he gave me that formula and I followed it, and I was very reluctant because I was like, Lord, I ain't trying to show nobody this bald head, because I had postpartum shedding so severe. But God used that trial and that troubling time for me to make me a success. And so, of course, and that's why I say, Lord, I thank God that all my hair fall out. I thank God, because some people, you know, they just have the edges. This whole front part of my hair was gone from postpartum. But the severity of it is what God used to turn the product into a success. So now, because I took pictures from the beginning straight to the end, pictures, videos, I documented the process. And then when I launched the product, boom, I got my receipts. All the before and after pictures, reels, you know, reels are a big thing. So I turned the pictures into reels, posting before and afters constantly. When I tell you my business went from doing okay, especially 2021 was, I always talk about it, was such a rough season in my life. It was rough. My business was not doing well at all. I wanted to give up. I was thinking about going back to corporate America. That's how rough it was. Like, I'm talking about, you know, like, as a self-employed business person, I was making, you know, on average about $6,000 a month. I dropped down. I wasn't even making $3,000 a month. And this not even 3,000. I still got to pay for shipping. I still got to pay for tax. Okay. This ain't even net. This gross. It was such a struggle, but God used that same bald-headed incident, that same postpartum shedding, to create that formula that he gave me. and that he breathed on. The first 6 months was a struggle, but let me tell you, when I launched that product and I just really followed the instructions that the Holy Spirit gave me for 2019, 2022, which was structure. So establish structure in your business, Lashelle. Get your finances, your business finances in order. Start hiring help because you're overwhelmed. So, start putting people in different places to handle things that you need to let go of so you can focus on what you need to focus on as an entrepreneur. Now, let me tell you, God ushered me in from struggling to we already hit over six figures in the business, over 100,000 in sales in the last 12 months. And it took
Two
me,
things. Two things. Um, and this would be as a marketing consultant, free for the listeners, those of you listening to this episode. One of the things that you said that I always lean my clients into is your greatest advocate for sales is your story, right? I remember I was consulting a company, and they were into nutrition, and they sold lunch and breakfast content. And I asked them, I said, what makes you valuable or relevant? And they said, well, they started to go in, well, our bread is gluten free and the lettuce that we use is organic. I said, so what? If I go Wendy's and get a chicken sandwich, I feel like the chicken to me is healthier than the bacon and burger. So what makes? And they said, but is the lettuce organic? I said, well, it Subway may be organic. I don't know. And so they said, well, and here's what I said to them. I said, what makes your product valuable really is convenience. Because one of the things that they did was you can place your order days in advance and they will deliver it to your office space. So if you ordered lunch today, they would bring it to you. And I started to show them, I said, for the mother that has to leave work at 2:30 to pick her child up, and before going back to work, they have to either take their child to swim in or pay a bill or what's not within an hour of lunchtime. It's incredibly convenient that they did not have to stop and grab lunch, right? So they get both healthy and convenient. And I was sharing with them that when you share with them or make this that the reason why we're doing this is because we think of mothers like you. That may be true or may not be true. But when they hear that the reason you're doing what you're doing because I'm included in your story, it creates both the need and the resolution, right? And that is true for any business that you're in. I remember when we were in timeshare, when I was doing timeshare fresh out of high school, and they would always say, create the need. And listen, I was in administration, so I only did sales whenever they had extra tours. And I remember I would share with them at the beginning of um, the tour, I say, listen, one, I'm doing this for the free breakfast. Two, you've already made up your mind whether you're going to purchase or not. And so let's just enjoy the free breakfast or lunch. I said, and three, I would just share with them. I was at uh, the College of the Bahamas at the time, and so I would share with them what the journey was like, and I was in dance ministry, and I would share it. And I listen. By the time the tour was finished, I didn't sell the people the first tour. I mean, first unit, right?
right.
But we would have to go back into the sales room, and so I would stop them, and I would say, listen, can you see yourself using this? And sometimes they would say yes, but we don't have the resources or the money or what's not. I said, okay, so if money was an issue, could you see yourself using this?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'd say yes, sometimes say no. I'd say, listen, I'm not selling you nothing. I only want to know when I get in this room, what am I going to tell the sales room manager? And when they saw themselves finding value in it, I'm going to tell you, um, just a year or two ago, about 2 years ago, someone that I met, um, who was one of the first couples that I sold a unit to,
Mm-hmm.
had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But from the time I sold them the timeshare, we became family.
Oh, wow.
My nieces and kids know them by name, and I remember when she called me and told me, what the doctor's report was. It was more than
Mm.
just selling,
Right.
because I invited them into a story, and they saw. And one of the things they said to me before they sold, they said, Taz, um, if we buy, are you still gonna be around?
Oh,
I said,
wow.
sure. I don't have no plans of going anywhere. And even after I left the resort, we were still connected, right? And so I think that's important. I think uh, when we make um, a resolution and adding value to our clients the priority, the inevitable is the money's going to be, sales are going to be made, money's going to be made.
Right.
But there's something you said that I would like to segue and kind of take the conversation, is you're building a community. And
Mm-hmm.
this was something that you started with in
Mm-hmm.
recognizing um, relevant elements to leadership, and that is surrounding yourself with people who add value to what it is that you're doing, right?
Yes.
For you, building a community of people that can assist with various tasks, whether it's the marketing, whether it's the labeling.
Mm-hmm.
Their production allows you to do administrative stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or someone in administration allows you to converse with clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how, first of all, how significant is community? And then you've taken the plunge, you're in entrepreneurship. How do you find your key people in building a community?
Mm-hmm. So, community is extremely significant. I mean, for example, we had Jesus, who was the all powerful, all perfect one, but he still had a community. He still had his 12, his core disciples who he trained to reproduce and go out, right?
Right.
The community is so important. No man is an island, and you will experience burnout so quick when you try to do everything yourself. Now, I used to struggle, and I still struggle with perfectionism. And so for me, it was really hard to let go of certain tasks. But when I started recruiting people, I looked for individuals who had the same mental mentality that I had and who had the same type of work ethic. That was key for me. Because if I know you and I share the same work ethic, you're going to do it in the same spirit that I will do it in, which is
Right.
excellent. And so one of the first things I had handed over was my marketing emails. Like I knew that anytime I did marketing emails, like you gonna get at least one sale. I was guaranteed at least one sale when I sent out an email. So I wanted to get more consistent in that area. Now to sit down and send out an email 1 to 2 times a week is a lot. But I knew, like people, they always say in the entrepreneurship industry, there's money in the list. So there's money in that email list. And so I saw that based on the results that I was getting from my emails and, the conversion rates and stuff like that. So I knew that that was an area that I needed consistency in. And so I found a young lady who just, she was excellent at what she did. And I spoke with her because I met her on social media in a business group on Facebook. We chatted. I talked to her about my needs to see if it was a good fit. And I mean, she has been amazing. So that was the first thing. And she had that work ethic. I saw the way she wrote. I saw the care that she put into it. Wasn't just something that she was doing for money. So she embodied the core values of J. Antoinette. And so that was important. And then I got my assistant who, I handed over to handle customer service issues. And I'm talking about, like I said, remember one of the points was you got to be teachable and recognize that some people are better than you in certain areas. I'm not
Right.
the most organized person. So I know that that was a need in the business. So I knew what I needed. I needed someone who was organized, someone who can put things together. And when I tell you my assistant is so organized, I mean, she has everything color coded, spreadsheet, everything just like she makes life easier for me. Again, same work ethic, embodies the same mentality, always willing to go the extra mile. And that was key for me in developing community in the business, and that's what I continue to look for as I continue to add people to the team. Right now it's just the three of us, but I'm getting ready to move into a new space, so I'm going to be adding more people. That's one of the keys. Like, you always want to look, first of all, you need to know your core values in your business, what's important to um, your business, what's the community like, fun, integrity, service excellence. Those are some of the things that I learned from my last job. And so what makes your company unique? What makes it, how do you define it? And those qualities that defines your company, or that you want to define your company, that's the type of people that you bring in. You look for the people with the same mindset that's going to have the heart that you have for your business. And that, like I said, that may be better than you now. Make sure they're bringing value, but they embody those values. That's important. That's how important community is. Because when you have that, everybody with the same mission, same goal is to, make the company great, and everybody's doing their part. Oh man, you're going to soar. You're going to soar.
That's so significant, and that I think that's important, especially for the solopreneur that's looking to scale their business and grow. Um, um, Being able to define what my values are. For some people, their value may be relationships. And so even though they're turning profits, they're doing so being mindful. And you think of organizations like um, non-profits or, community outreach, that though they're serving and leading with helping others relationally, that's a priority. Um, and for others, organizations, being on the cutting edge um, of technology is significant. And so I think that's important, to be able to define it as an entrepreneur, and then to be able to say it plainly so that those that are joining the organization would know. Because one of the things I know is people come with where they come from. And so at my last job, we did it like this. At your last job, our values and the way we do it is so before we leave, and for those of you that are just joining the podcast, take the lead with your host Tasman J. We have Lashelle, CEO and founder of J. Antoinette. Um, Go ahead, tell them how they can connect with you, find you, and even uh, purchase some of your products.
Okay. So our website is www.jantoinette1927.com. So that's just
Say it one more time.
1927, jantoinette1927.com. So that's our website. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook at j.antoinette1927. You can find me personally on Instagram at Life with Lashelle or Lashelle Bain on Facebook. And I'm also on YouTube. I think my page is still under my maiden name, which is Lashelle Z Farrington. But that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Some rapid questions, fun questions. You have an opportunity to assist or serve under three leaders. Who tops your list?
That's not a quick question. That's not a rapid question. Oh man. I would definitely say it's for my industry personally. I would say it would be a tie between Monique Rodriguez and Courtney Adelaide. They are the owners of two of the biggest brands in black hair care. So I would definitely say they're like one and two. And then let's see, number three. I don't know. It's so hard. I don't want to take it business wise. I want to look for another aspect.
I'll give you a bonus.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
you get 4.
Oh, you added on the pressure. So okay, so I would say Monique and Courtney is number one and two because they are definitely they're believers in this industry. And I love how they've grown their brand. I would definitely say just for the business mentality and money wise, I would want to sit under Mark Cuban. I love I love his how he's so direct and he don't have time to play around. It gotta make money and it gotta make sense. So being able to ferociously understand money and good business investments, I would love to sit under him. He's made some really good money moves. And there are, of course, men who are richer than him. But I think I would relate to him more because I think I would, be able to learn how to understand he's a little younger than, Bill Gates and them. And I think it would be easier because I think he's more personable.
And he's a CEO that wears jeans.
That part. That part. So I really like that. Do I talk to anybody else? I can't pull to mind anybody else right now. But I would say they would be my top three.
You and the hubby, you guys are in the kitchen and you're having or making your favorite dessert. What are you having?
Favorite dessert. Shoots. My favorite dessert. I don't know. Neither of us know how to make it, but if we gonna make my favorite dessert, oh, we making some guava duff, boo. We making some
Man,
guava
listen to me.
duff. None of us
Now
know
you
how to
make me
make
really want to go back home.
Okay, we gonna make some warming up that day if it's all about favorite dessert. Love it.
Awesome. And what are some of your favorite reads?
Oh my gosh. First one is Profit First. I would recommend that book to any entrepreneur that wants to start a business because finances foundation. So Profit First is a excellent book that teaches you how to run your business like a cash cow. Definitely say Profit First. Another book that I love is Credibility. It's a book that we read in years ago in my leadership course that I took. And that book to this day, what I have learned, I carry that in my heart. Credibility. It teaches on, integrity, um, credibility in your business, in yourself as a leader. How do you exemplify that to your teammates? Are you able to have those hard conversations with them? Those that may be tearing the team down, in order to keep your business, your name, your reputation. Is such a good book. Those two, I would say for sure, for any budding entrepreneur, especially for someone that wants to get into this space, I would definitely start with those two books. And then the third one is emotional intelligence. I think that's important too, because it helps you to understand yourself and understand other people.
Right. That's awesome. That's listen, uh, Lashelle, I am extremely in debt to you for your sharing both your journey with regard to leadership and entrepreneurship, and those nuggets that I think will catapult, inspire, educate, motivate leaders wherever they are. Because the wealth of information you share is truly invaluable and valuable simultaneously. And so I say thank you for those of you that have joined the podcast. If you have not done so as yet, go ahead and share this episode. What are you waiting on? This is your host, Tasman J. You've been listening to Take the Lead, and today's guest has been Lashelle Bain, CEO and founder of J. Antoinette. Uh, 1927. We are extremely excited. Listen, one more time. Remember, whether you are a stay at home mom, mid level entrepreneur, whether you are a university student, how and wherever you lead, I charge you, I encourage you, I provoke you to take the lead. Thank you for listening.